Hi guys, welcome to this lesson. This lesson is about the AWS Client VPN. So it is exactly what it sounds like. This is a way that you can connect your client computer to the AWS data center to a VPC via a VPN connection, so a virtual private network connection. So let's say you've got a computer which is Windows or Mac or Linux. You're able to set up a client connection from there into a VPC, and that means you're then able to communicate with resources in that VPC. So you might be able to connect to an EC2 instance directly using private IP addresses. Now, of course, it's a virtual private network, so that does mean that it's encrypted as well, end to end. So let's look at how you set them up. So here we have a region. In that region, we have a VPC with a couple of subnets. Now, we create a VPN endpoint, and the VPN endpoint is associated with subnets. So the client VPN network interfaces are created in the subnet. And that is the method by which the VPN connection is then able to communicate with resources in the subnets, because there is an association between this network adapter that's provisioned into the subnet and the VPN endpoint. We then have the client computer, and that's going to be running some VPN software. The VPN software is not AWS software, so you need to choose one of the available options. There's lots of free options. In the hands-on, in the next lesson, we're going to use OpenVPN. The client software will establish a connection with the VPN endpoint over SSL TLS, so port 443, and that's going to be via the internet. The VPN endpoint will actually perform source network address translation from the CIDR block that's associated with the VPN client to the CIDR block that's associated with the VPC. And on the client side, if you look in your route table, you can run a command on Windows which is route print, and you would then see your route table, and you'd be able to see that you have a destination for the CIDR block of the VPC and a gateway which is pointing at the VPN endpoint. So that's the theory behind how a client VPN works. Again, this is an encrypted connection over the internet from your computer. So your computer is then able to communicate using private IP addresses over to your instances in your subnets within your VPC. So that's how it all works. We're going to set this up using a Windows client on Amazon WorkSpaces and a VPN endpoint. So this is what we're going to do. Now, on the left here, you can see I'm using Amazon WorkSpaces in one region, and then I'm setting up a VPN endpoint in a different region. Now, the reason I wanted to do this and use WorkSpaces is just to provide some instructions that are the same for everyone. So it doesn't matter if you're on Mac, if you're on Linux, or if you're on Windows, you can use WorkSpaces and follow along. Now, the good news is if you are using Windows, then you don't need to use WorkSpaces, which will save you a bit of time. But by all means, follow along if you want to learn a bit about WorkSpaces. But you'll basically need a Windows client, and then we're going to follow some instructions to install OpenVPN client software on the Windows computer. And we're also going to use the Windows computer to generate some certificates. And we're going to use the certificates for mutual authentication. So there are a couple of options for authentication with the client VPN. One of them is mutual authentication using certificates. Another is that you can integrate a directory service like AWS Directory Service. That takes a bit longer, it's a bit more work to set up and a bit outside of the scope of this course. So I just wanted to use WorkSpaces, and we're going to use certificates. So this is the configuration, and what should happen is once we've connected our client to the VPN, we're going to have an instance running in a subnet within our VPC, and we're going to just test that we can ping that instance, which will show that we have that connectivity using private IP addresses via our connection. Now, when I'm running WorkSpaces in another region, we're definitely using the internet to connect to our VPN endpoint. So there's nothing going over the AWS backbone here. This is using a public internet connection from one region to another region. Now, as I mentioned, if you're running Windows on your computer, you can quite easily set this up from your own computer, and that will be via the internet obviously as well. Now, also you can download the configuration, so even if you want to use WorkSpaces to set up and generate the certificates that we're going to use, you can then use the VPN configuration and install that on whatever computer you're running on. So that's what we're going to do. Let's head over to the console and start building this out. I'm in the AWS Management Console, and I'm just going to type WorkSpaces at the top here, and then choose WorkSpaces. So this is desktops in the cloud, so it means that we can run a client operating system in the cloud. Now when you see the main screen here, you just click Get Started, and then you choose Quick Setup. Don't choose Advanced, because that will try and configure some options for using directory services, which we're not going to do. So use the Quick Setup, click Launch, and then what you want to do is it automatically goes to Linux, but we want to use Windows. So we just select this option, free tier eligible, standard with Windows 10. What you then do is put in your name, or whatever your username you want it to be. Then I'm going to put in my full name and then my email address. Once I've done that, I simply click Launch WorkSpaces. Now it does take a bit of time. So what I've done, I'm just going to cancel out of there and head over to US East North Virginia, where I've already set it up. Now notice that some regions are grayed out. That's because it's not available in all regions. So you can choose a different region if you like, but I'm going to go to US East North Virginia, and you'll only be able to select some of the available options here. So it can take about 20 minutes or so to actually become available. When it does, just click on this down arrow here and you'll find the clients link. So let's copy this address, and what we're going to do is then go to another browser window and navigate to this web page. So this is the web page you'll see. You need to download the client software, and it's available for various different versions of operating system. I use Mac OS, so I just download this option. If you're on Windows, just download this one here. Once you've downloaded it, install the software, and then you'll be ready to go. Now you'll notice that there's a registration code here. What you need to do is copy this registration code and then head to the client software that you just downloaded and installed. Then in the WorkSpaces software, just click on Change Registration Code, enter your registration code, and click on Register. We're now ready to connect. My username is Neil, and then for the password, what you'll find is an email should have come to your inbox. In that email, there's a link. You have to click on the link, and the link will take you to a page where you get to reset your own password, or to set your own password. Once you've done that, come back and enter your password here, and you should be able to connect to your desktop. So I'm ready, and I'm going to click on Sign In, and that should start my workspace and connect me to my Windows 10 desktop. So that's it. I'm logged on to my Windows 10 desktop. Now what I want to do is show you an article, and I'm going to link this article to the lesson, and this is going to have some instructions that we can follow for actually generating the certificates we're going to use. So you'll see on here that the instructions, by the way, if you just come to the top of the article, just scroll down to mutual authentication, then you'll see Linux, Mac OS, or Windows. So we're going to choose Windows, and then we're going to download the OpenVPN software, install it, and then we run a series of commands, and those commands are going to generate the certificates that we're going to use for mutual authentication. So what I'm going to do is just copy this link, come back and use Firefox to connect. So I'm on the OpenVPN webpage, and I'm going to download the 64-bit Windows installer, and that's an MSI. Let's just save that locally, and then let's look at that download. Let's double click and run the MSI installer. Now we're going to click on Customize. We need to make a couple of changes. Firstly, what I want to do is change the path to install to D://. The reason is on WorkSpaces we are restricted from the C drive, and we do need to go into this file location to use some of the utilities and find some of the files we generate. So change that to D:// and then the same path. Click on OK. Scroll down to the bottom here, and we want to install the OpenSSL utilities. That installs this easy-rsa free certificate manager scripts, and then click on install. So that's installed successfully. And now what I want to do is head back to this article, and we're going to start using some of these commands. So we're starting here at number 5. The first command here, I'm just going to copy that to my clipboard, come back, let's open a command prompt, paste that in. That changes us to the easy-rsa directory. Then we're going to start easy-rsa, then come back, and from here the commands actually pick up this hash, which we don't need. So rather than using the copy here, I'm just going to highlight it and copy that across, and we just run each of these one after the other. Now this one does ask for some information. I'm just going to type VPN server here for the host name, hit enter, and that's finished. Let's come down to the next one, put this command in, and then lastly one more command. We paste this in, and that should generate all of our certificates. Great, so that all completed successfully. Now what you'll notice now is there's a couple of ways that we can then upload these certificates. So we're going to upload them to AWS Certificate Manager, and you can either do that manually, which I'm going to show you how to do, or you can just follow this here and use the AWS command line interface. If you do that, just make sure you install the AWS command line interface, and then you need to run these commands to copy the files to a custom folder of your choice, and then you can run a single command which will actually then go and upload those to AWS Certificate Manager for you. Now I'm going to show you the manual way as well, so that you can do it that way if you choose. So on the AWS Management Console, I'm going to search for certificate, and that will bring up Certificate Manager. And I need to change regions because I need to have the certificates installed in the same region where my VPN endpoint will be. And I don't want my VPN endpoint to be the same region as my workspaces, so I'm going to choose North California. In Certificate Manager, let's click on Get Started under Provision Certificates. We're going to choose Import a Certificate at the top. And now we need to supply this information. So we need the certificate body first. Now we're going to do this for the server and the client certificate. So back in Workspaces, I'm going to open up File Explorer. I'm going to go into the D drive, Program Files, OpenVPN, easy-rsa, PKI. And then in PKI, there's a few files that we need. Firstly, we go into Issued, and we find the server certificate here. What I'm going to do is open with, and let's choose Notepad, and then we just copy all of this information to our clipboard, come back over, paste it into the certificate body. We next need the private key, so now we go up a level back to PKI, go to private and server.key. Again, we're going to open this with Notepad. Again, highlight it all, copy to your clipboard, come back, paste that in, and then the certificate chain. Certificate chain is back up again, CA. So just choose the CA here. And again, let's open this with Notepad, copy that to our clipboard, and paste that in. We'll need that for the next one, so I'll leave that file open as well. We can now just click on Review and Import, and click on Import. So that's great. We now have our server certificate. Let's head back over, and we can leave this one open. I'm going to need that in a moment. And what we want to do is go back to Issued, open the client certificate, copy that to our clipboard, and then let's come back and we're going to import a certificate, paste that in, come back for the private key. We can close this file. Again, we go up a level, go to private, choose the client certificate, open with Notepad, we paste this one in, and then lastly we come back and we've already got this file open, so we just copy this again and paste this in, and that gives us our certificate chain. Click on Next, Review and Import, and Import. So we now have our certificates. We've got our server and our client certificate. And what I want to do is just connect over to the VPC management console, and we're going to scroll down to VPN, and you'll find Client VPN endpoints. We're going to create an endpoint. I'll just call this My Client VPN. We need to give it a CIDR block. So this is the CIDR block for the computers that connect in. So the computer that you connect in, whether it's your computer or your WorkSpaces client, will get an IP in this range. I'm going to use a range that I know we haven't used. Now for server certificate, I'm going to select this top one that says server. I'm going to select mutual authentication and then select the client certificate here. I'm not going to select logging or enable the connection handler. Now we can also supply a DNS server here for DNS resolution. I'm going to supply one which could be in the subnet that we're connecting to. We next choose the VPC. In this region we've only got one. We can select the security group. There's just a default security group at this stage. And you can also enable the self-service portal if you want to. I'm not going to enable that at this stage. Now I'm going to create the client VPN endpoint. Our VPN endpoint is set up. We can see that it's pending associate. So remember, we need to associate it with a subnet. So I'm going to choose a VPC, choose a subnet to associate with. I'm going to choose US West 1A, click on associate and close. Another thing we need to do is we need to set up authorization. Now this is where you can set the destination networks that you want to allow your clients to connect to. Now I'm just going to open it up with the any IP address. You can also grant to specific users, so you can actually do this in combination with AWS directory services if you use that instead of the certificate-based authentication, and allow access to users in a particular group. We'll just allow it for everybody and just add that authorization rule. There's also a route table in here. You can create your own, but it will create one for you. And that route table will allow access to the subnet that we just connected to. You can see that's in the state of creating, and it does take a few minutes, so you might have to leave this for 5 to 10 minutes and then everything should be set up. Now in the meantime, what we can do is download the client configuration. So just click on download and you'll get that file. We then need to get the contents of that file over to our WorkSpaces desktop. So a couple of ways to do that. You can find a way to actually upload the file there if you like, using some kind of file sharing, or you can just open it with a text editor, copy the contents, and then create a file on the destination. I'm going to do that. So I'll open my file with Notepad, copy the contents, and then I'll show you where to create the file on your Amazon Workspaces desktop. Back on Workspaces, let's just open up the Notepad, and I'm pasting in the information from the file which I downloaded. So this is the config. So what we need to do now is just save this file somewhere. I'm going to just put this onto the D drive. In fact, no, I'll put it onto the desktop because I'm not sure we have the rights to actually save it there. I need to change to all files, and then I'm just going to call this clientconfig.ovpn, and let's save that file. Now there are a couple of lines that we need to add to this. It will often not work in this particular state. So I'll show you what those are. In the course download, you'll find in the code directory, you'll find Client VPN and then OpenVPN config. And we've got these two lines here, and these will actually provide the path to the certificate and the certificate private key. So just copy these two, and don't worry about the double backslashes. That is required for the config file. That's not a typo. And then back in here, we can simply add a new line. We'll paste that in. So we've got those two lines here, and then save that file. Now let's run the OpenVPN GUI, and you might get this message here. That's okay. Now you'll find it in your system tray in the bottom here. And if you right click it, you can then choose import file. Let's go to our desktop, and we've got our client config. So let's import the file. So that looks good. We've got this all running. Now the other thing we want to do is just head over and launch an EC2 instance, which is what we're going to ping to prove that we've got the connectivity into our subnet. So I'm in the EC2 management console in North California. I'm going to launch an instance. Let's choose launch instances. The usual options, the Linux 2 AMI and the T2 micro. And then there's only one VPC. Let's make sure we put it in the right subnet because this is the subnet we associated to the VPN endpoint. So I'm using US West 1A. So I'm going to choose that one. Let's click on next, go through to security group, and let's see if we've got a security group. We don't have one in this region. So I'm going to call this web-access, and then let's just add in an additional rule because we want to be able to ping this instance. So I'm going to allow ICMP from anywhere, and that will give us the ability to ping this instance. And we've also got SSH if we did want to connect in. So that's it. I'm going to launch. I do need to create a key pair because I haven't used this region recently. So let's call this ncal.kp, and I'm going to download the key pair and launch the instance. You'll want to go in and take a note of the private IP address for your instance, and then let's head back and see if our VPN endpoint is ready. Okay, things look good. It says it's available. Let's check the association. That's associated. The authorization is active. So that all looks good. So let's head back to WorkSpaces and see if we can connect our VPN. Okay, so let's try and connect now. So in the system tray, I'm going to right click the OpenVPN, choose connect, and it's running through. Looks good. And there we are. We're now connected to the VPN. So let's now try and connect to the EC2 instance we launched. So I'm going to try and ping the EC2 instance, and that's not responding. So let's just go and check why that is. I'm pretty sure we got it set up correctly. Let's check a few things. So we've got the route table. That's definitely set up and active. We have an authorization for the destination CIDR. That definitely looks good. The security group shouldn't apply. The default security group will have an outbound rule that allows all traffic. And then we're associated with the 44.8D network here, the subnet that ends in 44.8D. So we'll check that in a moment, but the first thing I want to check is security groups because I reckon that's most likely the problem here. So let's see, we've got web access. Let's have a look. We've got echo reply. So actually what we want to do is we just want to go and add a rule for all ICMP v4. So if you've done the same as me, then just go back in and edit your rule. And I just need it for v4. So it should be all ICMP v4. So with that applied, let's go back, and that should take instant effect. And sure enough, it does. So that's great. We've now got an echo response from our EC2 instance in a private subnet using a private IP address. And remember, this WorkSpaces desktop is running in North Virginia, and we're accessing the EC2 instance over a VPN connection using the public internet, and the EC2 instance is running in California. So that all looks great. Now, back in the console here, if we just go back to Client VPN endpoints, another thing you'll be able to see is under connections, you can see your connections here. I disconnected a couple of times, so you can see I picked up a different IP address once in the middle there, and you can monitor your connections here. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed that lab. Hope it all worked for you. So we don't need this configuration anymore, so I'm actually going to go and get rid of it. Now, we do have to remove the association first and then wait till that's disassociated. While that's happening, let's go back to WorkSpaces, and I'm going to remove my workspace so we don't end up paying anything. So in WorkSpaces, just select your workspace and then choose Remove Workspace, and that will remove that workspace for you. And then back in the Client VPN, just wait until this is disassociated, and then you should be able to go in and choose Delete Client VPN Endpoint.